Can you hit $1 million in annual recurring revenue with GoHighLevel SaaS mode, with the GoHighLevel SaaS agency, or anything in that market? Now, the reality is most people are going to sit here and they're going to say, well, look, $1 million, what does it require? What do you need to do here to hit $1 million in annual recurring revenue? Well, you need $84,000 per month in monthly recurring revenue, which equates to about 170 clients at $497 per month. But you see, there's a lot of people who have seen what I do here and try to replicate it, but they always miss a few crucial components, which I'm going to share with you here. Now, the reality is $497 per month equates to 170 roughly clients at $497, and that gives you that $84,000 per month. Makes sense. And you'd think that's how you would hit $1 million. It's easier to hit that. Sounds simple enough, right? But it's so much harder than it looks. And so many people struggle to get 10 clients like this rather than 170. And it means you need sales calls, you need all the different bells and whistles. You're not set up for success. Your fulfillment becomes stressful, becomes harder to do. It's a harder sell. It just makes it difficult. So it makes seem simpler for you to do that, but the reality is it's not true. It becomes much more difficult to do it actually. I'm going to show you how this can be done slightly differently based on the reality of what actually happens. Being someone that does this on a daily basis, being someone that has this type of business, this is what I've actually experienced and this is what I'm going to do. Now, if you can make it to the end of this video, you're going to have a clear insight on how to actually achieve this, right? You're going to have a clear pathway. This is the strategy that I've implemented myself to scale to this level. This strategy has been the secret behind my growth to this point. Now, this is what I do. This is what I do on a daily basis. This is the strategy that I'm going to use to hit that million mark. And this is the strategy that has got us to the point we're at today. Now, most people are going to go out there and they're going to try and sell a service at $497 per month to a chosen market, right? To a chosen niche. And they're going to experience quite a lot of churn, customers canceling. They're going to see a lot of credit card declines, which if you are in this space and you're just starting out, you're not going to expect that, right? But again, I can tell you it's going to happen. It's not necessarily something to worry about. It's something that we have to acknowledge. It's something that we have to expect and prepare for. But it's not something that you're going to necessarily think at first glance that's what's going to happen. Now, if you're priced at that $497 mark, it's going to happen a lot more. That's the key. There's a lot of things you might not consider, which you're going to consider after watching this video. So you're going to experience significant churn. You're going to experience credit card declines and general fulfillment problems because your customer expectations are a lot higher. Now remember, at $497 per month, customers are not going to view this as $497 per month. They're going to view this as $5,000+ per year. That's how it computes in their mind. It's consumer psychology. When they see that monthly recurring subscription, they compute it annually. So it becomes a much bigger purchase, which is why you need sales calls at this price point. Now, one of the keys here is the churn. I would experience on a really bad day about 10%. Honestly, it's probably about 5%. But if you're at the $497 mark, when you come into times of economic volatility, when you come into recessions and things like that, where the finances get tighter, all of a sudden you become an expense. That $497 can be used to pay the electricity bill. It can be used to buy more inventory. It can be used for a lot of different things. And it can be even used to push marketing ad spend, right? They can reallocate that budget elsewhere, especially for small business. So when things become tighter, that $497, that becomes a cost. That becomes a hard cost, which they can cut. If they cut it, it makes a big difference to them. So why would you position yourself as a prime target with expenses to be cut if times get tighter or when they inevitably get tighter and even tighter than they are today? Why would you set yourself as a sitting duck, right? I would never recommend you do that. You've got to think about these things in advance. And the good news is I'm telling you what to think about. So we don't want to be sitting ducks here. If you go for the $497 a month price point, which everybody tells you to do, you're going to price yourself out of automatic purchases, which means you need sales calls. As I said, they're going to, in their brain, compute that as $5,000 per year, roughly. And they're not going to buy automatically. If they do, they've only got the intention of staying for a month, which completely wastes your time because as a SaaS agency, you need that recurring revenue. You want the relationship with the customer. You want that long-term pathway with them, right? So it doesn't make any sense for you at all to do this. This creates an exhausting cycle where you're just trying to always replace those customers. And now the reason people tell you to go down this path is because you can get a couple of customers. You could try and hard sell them. You could do sales calls, feel like you're making progress. But the reality is, like so many people in any industry, they're only going for that fast cash, right? They're in 2 years' time, their business is gone, it's disappeared because they never prepared for the future. They never built for a long lasting foundation or a strong foundation, long lasting business and a strong foundation. They didn't build like that. They just built for get a couple of clients and go. And that's the reality of these markets. People that are coming into it and don't really have that in place and try to build these things quickly. It's going to fizzle out, and that's why it's a constant cycle. And you see it all the time in the industry. So you want to build for long-term success. You want to build for longevity. Now, I created the ladder funnel years ago to handle this specific problem, and I'm going to give you some secret sauce into how this actually scales. The concept of a ladder funnel is to sell intro products on the front end that give the software context. It gives it purpose. That's the key. Yes, we want to break even with our ad spend. That's one of the core principles of the ladder funnel. I want to be able to run paid ads and I want it to break even on a daily basis. But really what I'm doing is I'm nurturing and preparing that prospect to ascend into the software. And not just ascend into the software, I'm preparing them to become very, very good customers that stick around for a long time. Because the secret with the software is usage. If I get them to use the software, they're going to stick around. Not just use the software though. It's very easier for them to come in and click a couple of buttons, but I'm talking about use it and continue to use it on an ongoing basis. So rather than trying to use the different bells and whistles on GoHighLevel, the AI, database reactivation, review management, all these types of things, rather than using them as features or tools, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it context. I'm not going for the problem-aware market or the solution-aware market. What I mean by this is if I'm looking at database reactivation, I can only target the market that understand that they have a database, that there's still money left in that database, and they want it to be reactivated. And they know the solution is, oh, well, I can use a reactivation service. That shrinks my market down significantly. Well, I'm not going to do this because I don't want to operate with such restrictions. I'm going to create my own demands. I'm going to create my own usage of the software. So what I'll do is I build a lead gen system that utilizes the different features on GoHighLevel to make it go faster. So they're coming in, my prospects through a ladder funnel are coming in with context. They're coming in because they want to build this lead generation system, which gets them using the software, which then leads to retention. I'm creating my own demand for this, and that's what I encourage you to do. So we are lowering churn rates as a result because they actually use the software, they have context, they've got purpose. So I'm already building for the long-term relationship, long-term retention, rather than a quick sale. Now, normally I'm going to price this around $97 per month. This means that I need 866 users on the platform. That sounds like a lot, right? That sounds like a crazy amount, tons and tons of people, but it's not quite as significant as it seems. Here's a little known secret. If you run a ladder funnel with paid ads, most offers are going to have an extremely hot initial period where you can sell 500 units of an intro product before the acquisition cost rises. This can take about 2 to 3 months to run through, and based on our conversion rates, that's going to result in about 150 software subscribers, excluding any that come in over time on the back end through the likes of email, through the likes of groups, and just long tail nurture. So I'm only considering the immediate in-funnel sales here. So instead of pushing water uphill, the first thing I'm going to do here is make sure that these intro products are aligned. Each intro product is going to behave like this. So this is the pattern, having launched quite a lot of these, this is the pattern that we've experienced. It allows us to tap into different segments of the market that have different needs. So rather than trying to exhaust an intro product with a ladder funnel, we flip that product in and out for a different one, coming from a completely different angle. This is going to keep my offer fresh. This means that your focus time, so where you do your work, right? So if you don't want to be customer facing, if you don't want to be dealing with client work, you don't want to be on sales calls, this is the holy grail for you, because your time, your focus time, your work is based around creating new intro products 4 or 5 times per year. So once per quarter, essentially, right? This allows you to continuously run, always hitting the lower hanging fruit. And it means that you can take advantage of the lower customer acquisition cost and keep scaling. Now, I want you to think about this. With paid advertising, as you move into colder audiences who aren't familiar with you, who don't know who you are, who are not quite buyer ready, they have to be nurtured, the acquisition cost is going to rise. That then creates problems because the funnel is not engineered, you may not have initially engineered the funnel for this. You can always engineer after the fact, but it becomes more challenging. So it's much easier to run profit with a ladder funnel, as in, instead of just thinking about breaking even, if you want to be profitable in that front end, engineering it for the hot buyers, the low hanging fruit, you can always remain in that profitable pocket, which frees up your cash flow, which allows you to scale even faster, more aggressively. And it's a beautiful scenario. So the secret is, instead of trying to move into those colder pockets and looking at the different acquisition costs and trying to get a little higher average order value, what if we just stuck in the hot pockets all the time with cycling the intro products? That's the beauty. So if we flip through 1 intro product per quarter over the course of a year, that's 4 per year. All you have to do is create 4 products per year, which isn't particularly hard, especially if you use the AI systems that we use. Each intro product is going to behave in a similar fashion because the offers are fresh. That's the secret. They're always fresh. This results in about 600 subscribers based on our conversion rates. So we can expect about a 10% churn on a really bad day. So that probably drops the subscriber count down to 540. So I now need about 400 more subscribers. By cycling those 4 products, I can get to 540. I need about 400 more subscribers if we consider additional churn that's going to happen throughout the lifetime. Now, there's a second strategy that we look at that we can deploy to hit those 866 users on the software. Instead of only focusing on one market, we position for a broad market. Now, you've heard it all before. Only run one business. You can't flip into different businesses. Well, the reality is we're not. We're always running the same business. We're just expanding our market. This is a market expansion. We're doing the same thing over and over and over again as one business, but you can benefit from the low-hanging fruit. You can benefit from the market expansion. It's the beauty of it. So instead of only focusing on one market, we position for a broad, expansive market. I'm always going to position my intro products around the certified acquisition expert process. There's a reason for this. This focuses on lead generation, demand generation. I can create demand for other businesses. I always want to focus my intro products around this because every business owner wants more demand. It doesn't matter if the economy tightens. It doesn't matter if there's economic volatility. If I can make them more money, it's going to be in demand. So I'm always going to position around this. This means I can go into various different niches and markets without actually changing anything I'm doing. So rather than boxing myself in, I can flip between the insurance space, the financial advisory space, mortgage space, tax advisors, accountants, the work, anything, realtors. It doesn't matter. I can flip between these spaces, all without actually changing anything, because the lead generation process is pretty similar across these markets. Now, these markets can individually scale to about 866 users individually, independently. But it's so much easier if we just keep tapping into the hot buyer pockets across each of the markets. So just instead of trying to push into those who are not problem aware, solution aware, instead of trying to convert those and educate those into a problem and solution aware state, what if we just stuck to the low hanging fruit all the time, right? Because instead of trying to engineer a business that can scale into that one market, what if we engineered the business that didn't have to change? We could just flip all the time because nothing changes. We can expand markets. Instead of scaling vertically into the market, what if we positioned it where we scaled horizontally, right? We expanded, but nothing ever changes. That's the beauty of what we're doing here. So much easier to tap into the hot buyer pockets across each of these markets, just changing the intro products that we use. This ensures that we never really saturate and we can take advantage of the lowest acquisition cost possible, which is a great position to be in. Imagine always being able to tap into hot buyer pools rather than moving further and further and further into cold audiences. Imagine that scenario. This means I can deploy the exact same process in a niche that's independent. Because the markets are relatively related, the conversion rates remain the same. So I'm just living by numbers here, right? I'm living by the one system, living by the numbers. So I can repeat my process over and over and over again without tiring out. So this means I can hit 400 extra users in those markets by launching a few additional intro products and ascending them into the software. At no point have I exhausted any market. In fact, I could split the 866 user base. I can split that across 4 different niches with just 220 users roughly, each for $97 per month software. Now, to give you some context here, I mentioned the insurance space earlier. There are over 1 million insurance agents, I think it's life insurance, that number, in the US alone, just in the US. Of course, from a million, I can get 220, right? 220 is a drop in the ocean. That's all I need. Can you get 220 people from 1 million people, an audience size of 1 million, who all share the same problems that you can solve? Of course you can. Of course we can. That's the secret. If we build correctly from the outset, we open up the world. Whereas if you don't build the right way, you're boxed in there, right? Things become a lot harder. Well, if we build the right way, the world is our oyster. We can expand easily and scale so much more quickly. This process is always the same. All we need to do is reposition the intro product over and over again. The lead generation process used for these markets is similar. That's why we choose them. So it flips easily between them. This transforms the frame of 866 users in one market from sounding like a lot to 220 users across 4 markets, which is so much easier for us to do, right? It's way easier. The benefit here is that we don't need sales calls because we're always operating in hot pockets. This isn't having 4 different businesses. This is having one business with one offer with market expansion. I'm just scaling horizontally here. I'm not scaling vertically deeper into the market. I'm scaling horizontally into different niches. Market expansion with the same product or service. That's the beauty of it. Now, the purpose of this video is to show you what's possible. It can be done. This is what I do, and this is my strategy going forwards for further scale. Now, when you look at services like database reactivation and review management, it's more difficult to scale to these levels because it's not as in demand. If it's not in demand or not as in demand, if you're only going to problem or solution aware markets and really sort of condensing that market, making it tighter for yourself, getting that momentum that keeps you going is a lot harder. Life becomes a lot easier when you have momentum to push forwards with. So that's what we do. When you build the intro product around the certified acquisition expert process, you can position it for demand. So you master this process and you generate demand. Generating demand, having the ability to generate demand is always in demand. It's always going to be in demand because even if costs rise, business owners have to cut costs. As I always say in my videos, there's a floor as to how low these costs can actually go. So once they hit that floor, they either close or they make more money. Well, again, even in the worst scenario, the option to make more money is always on the cards, right? You can always do this. That's where you come in. So if your position is someone that can make them more money, you're always going to be in demand. That's the beauty of what we do. Now, even if you don't want to hit 1 million per year, say that wasn't your goal, wouldn't it be easier to hit 500K, let's say, per year with a system that's capable of hitting 1 million rather than struggling? So rather than trying to choose a vehicle that you can push to 500K, what if you just went with a vehicle that could hit 1 million, but you only did 500K by choice? Wouldn't that be easier? They always say, shoot for the moon and you'll hit the stars, or vice versa, or whatever the saying is, right? You get the point. Isn't it always easier to do that? To say, well, look, if this vehicle can hit 1 million, I'm going to hit 500K. That's the way I would do it. Now, that's my thinking. This video is most likely quite niche and a bit higher level, but if you found the concept useful, if it sparked some ideas, let me know in the comments and make sure, as ever, you like and subscribe.